Aliens have already made contact with us, and we have proof. Now you will see them, and not only. Something happened in a quiet corner of Zimbabwe, from what still goosebumps run through the skin of anyone who hears about it. It was 1994th year. Place School Ariel, big private primary school, nestled on the edge of the African heartland. Had a clear cloudless day, and during recess 62 kids were playing in the schoolyard. And then they saw it. Something was hovering over the trees, silver disc-shaped thingy, which they have not seen in any first grade or textbook. Object landed near a patch of grass, just behind the fence. What happened next turned this from a simple UFO sighting in one of the most reliable cases encounters with aliens in history. A few kids said that creatures came out of the apparatus, tall and not monstrous, and small ones with long limbs, huge black eyes, and thin mouths. Most children struck not only that, what did those creatures look like, but also what they felt. Some described receiving certain messages telepathically. No word was spoken. These were messages about the future. Message about how we feel about Earth. When the teacher's back, they discovered a group of frightened kids with wide, open eyes, talking to each other. Some were crying. Others tried to draw them. What did they see? The drawings were eerily similar to each other. Interviews followed. Researchers, psychologists, even Harvard psychiatrist John Poppy, who didn't believe in aliens before, interviewed kids. Their stories didn't change. They didn't want to get famous. No one prompted them. And decades later, many of them, already adults, still adhere to that. What did they see? Despite investigations and documentaries, never been given anyone for real appropriate explanation. Mass hysteria, extremely unlikely. Draw, it's impossible. Hallucination, but not everyone. Because as if in that only morning, the curtain between our world and something else has risen, just for a moment, and 62 children stepped into the unknown. For decades, rumors of secret government documents by UFO rejected, like a banal fantasy. But then something changed. Are you past 1,000 pages? Once classified documents, UFO related, in the public domain. No loud announcement, no press conference, just a quiet download to an accessible digital archive. And what was inside the documents? Enough strange observations, unexplained phenomena, and edited code names to make even skeptics think. One document details the event of the Soviet era, when the pilots reported the blinding beam of light, who turned off their devices control in the middle of flight. Another talks about radar anomalies located near American nuclear facilities. These are not stories from comics or from internet forums. These are real files, once labeled as top secret. And yet almost every report was partially edited. Many details in the documents are hidden. It's like getting your hands on puzzle pieces. Exactly so much to understand that there is something important there, but not enough to see the whole picture, which is even more intriguing. So this is how exactly did the CIA decide to release these documents? It happened just at the moment when public pressure around UFOs was growing, and just before as Congress began to demand answers from the Pentagon. Is this coincidence or strategy? Perhaps this is proof of that government were not only aware of these phenomena, but also worked on their understanding. Perhaps they still did not fully understand them, because even though these files were declassified, the questions they raise still remain unanswered. It all started with a rumble. A loud roar rang out over the hills near Varginha, a small town in southeastern Brazil. It was January 20th, 1996. What followed this had one of the weirdest UFO stories ever appeared in South America. Some call it Brazilian Roswell, but this story could be even stranger. The figure was humanoid, but not human, about 120 centimeters tall, with brown oily skin, big red eyes, and 3 bony protrusions along head's. Creature seemed scared. It wasn't aggressive, it just looked back at people. The girls screamed and ran away. They told their mother about it, who went to the place and felt some strange smell in the air, like ammonia or sero. Within hours, police and firefighters carefully combed the area. Eyewitnesses claimed what have seen how soldiers in protective suits were taking the creature away, wrapped in a sheet. The next day, according to reports, another similar creature was taken alive. They said a local officer touched him and mysteriously passed away a few days later from a sudden infection. Officially, his death had nothing to do with aliens, but many still doubt it. Denials then followed. Military said that creature was just a mentally ill homeless man. But that didn't explain the presence of the military roadblocks and departures from a nearby air base. Even dispatchers acknowledged that weird flying machine violated Brazilian airspace and then disappeared. More witnesses have appeared over the years. Hospital worker, which saw how did the doctors examine something small and inhuman to employee, which claimed that multiple animals suddenly died after that incident. Leaked documents and anonymous evidence only exacerbated this mystery. Officially, the case has never been confirmed, but something happened in Varginha. What the military doesn't want to talk about. Was it an accident, evacuation, or something even weirder? The city was never the same. There's even a statue in town today, shaped like a flying saucer, right at the roundabout, as if saying it was for real. We remember this, even though no one else believes it. They were in space, revolved around the Earth, and stared into the void longer than most of us will ever be able to, no matter how cool. Some of the most intriguing UFO evidence don't come from civilians and from astronauts. These are not rumors, these are public statements, interviews, and even transcripts of people's mission in our orbit. Former NASA astronaut Gordon Cooper, one of the first pilots of Mercury Atlas 7, openly talked about what saucer-shaped flying machine saw landed at Edwards Air Force Base in the 50s. He submitted a report to the Pentagon, but no one else saw his video recording. Decades later, Edgar Mitchell from Apollo 14 claimed that senior officials knew about that some devices were not from the ground. Mitchell moonwalked, knew the protocols, and yet he was sure that we are not one. There are also weird moments from space flights themselves. During the flight, Gemini and 7 astronauts reported what have seen scarecrow term, which military pilots used to refer to unknown objects. In the Apollo mission records, certain code words were used. When outside the ship, something inexplicable appeared, even on the ISS live show. Metal objects sweeping through the blackness, just outside the atmosphere. Usually NASA blames all the debris, but not everyone believes that. There is still James McDivitt during the flight of Gemini 4. He saw that what described like a white cylindrical object with arms sticking out. He took a picture. NASA published it, but said it was just a reflection. That's just McDivitt did not agree. He knew what sunlight looked like from orbit. And he's not, though. Most astronauts are careful and are taught not to speculate. But when people in space say, what is going on, there's something weird, they are listened to. Stillwood, after all, saw the Earth from above and noticed something else in the dark. It was just one frame filmed by drone during a routine reconnaissance mission over Masel and Cancer. But then, what did he show? Changed the tone of the UFO conversation. Soaring silently in the sky, perfectly spherical metal object, later called Masula sphere. It wasn't a blurry shot from a mobile phone. This was US military pattern footage, filmed in broad daylight by drone operator. The sphere had no bearing wings, screws, and heat traces. She wasn't falling, did not slide, steamed, and also suddenly disappeared. Video leak was confirmed by journalist, by investigator Jeremy Corbell, which collaborated with former military and representatives. Pentagon did not deny the authenticity of the footage. They just didn't find an explanation for them. It's already becoming a pattern. Analysis of the object did not reveal an obvious system. It wasn't a balloon. It was too symmetrical and too hard. It wasn't a bird, not rocket, and not camera failure. Sphere had an ass shadow. She was physical, some insiders claimed. What was that part of a bigger one? Clusters of metal balls, spotted near combat zones around the world. And if it's true, the question arises, why exactly there? US intelligence agencies call such objects unidentified anomalous phenomena. It's a vague term, but he's clearly masking reality. Military don't know what are dealing with if these balls appear near combat zones. It says that someone or something is watching us. The orb appearance in Masula wasn't dramatic. No kidnappings, no lasers, just an impossible object calmly floating in restricted airspace in the war zone. It all started with a regular weather scan, but then what appeared on the radar over Washington that day? Around Columbia, there was no storm. That was something else. Something in the shape of a perfect 5-pointed star, still and throbbing. Meteorologists thought that it is a failure, but the object remained there for more than an hour. Screenshots began to appear online. Bright green star-shaped radar bursts, which cannot be confused with anything. Right on USA lovers, meteorologists, our experts, movement and forms of conspiracy theory revived and varied, from Troy drones to atmospheric experiments. But no one could explain geometry. Reflected radar signals do not form such forms unless they are caused by physical factors. The object was not displayed on the radar of civil aircraft. Commercial aircraft pilots didn't report anything unusual visually, but the meteorological community was baffled. Satellite data, compared with weather balloon data, did not show activity in this particular pole. One anonymous source in Feria, as reported, told the journalist, "We've never seen a throwback like this." Some suggested, what could it be? Electronic intervention, except that it would affect multiple systems, but that didn't happen. In a dense forest between tornado bases in Suffolk, something extraordinary happened in England. It was the end of December, cold and dark, when members of the Royal Air Force at bridges spotted weird lights descending into the nearby forest by Rendlesham. Thinking it might be a downed plane, they went on recon. The fact that they have revealed haunted by the people involved. Sergeant Jim Peniston has arrived first. Later, he described a metal ship with weird symbols engraved on its surface, similar to hieroglyphs, but not from any known language. He claims that touched the object and got something kinda loading binary code straight into your mind. Then the apparatus rose silently into the air and disappeared. The next night the lights are back. This time Deputy Base Commander Charles Hold took the tape recorder team with him. His voice is calm, but at the same time rattling, was recorded when they saw rays of light falling into the forest, and also something that looks like a glowing object neatly maneuvering between the trees. An official U.S. Air Force memo was discovered, which he wrote later. He called it UFO sighting dense, discovered in the ground, whereas thought landed apparatus. British and American military tried to hush up the incident, calling it mistakenly identified beacon rays or meteorites, but the record was, to many high-ranking officers, too many physical marks were left, and the record available so far proves that there was something in the woods that night, something the world wasn't supposed to see. In northeastern Utah is an extensive estate, which is called the weirdest place in America. Cattle disappear without a trace here. Glowing orbs soar silently over the landscape. Shadows appear in the sky, then disappear, as if moving into another layer of reality. Locals call it Ranch Skywalker. This ranch once belonged to the family terrorized by this phenomenon, and later it was acquired by a certain billionaire who brought scientists and observation equipment. Cameras recorded objects sweeping through the air, of magnetic fields, and even the appearance of humanoid figures near the ridge. What makes the before skin occur so creepy? So this is that it does not comply with the rules. At one point there are lights in the sky. Next time it might be poltergeist activity inside a locked trailer. Cow can graze in 1 minute, and the next die, with no blood or marks and no predators. Equipment fails without any reason. Batteries are instantly discharged. The US government even intervened in the case. A secret program called UFSUB. Scientists were sent to the ranch to study it. Some of them left earlier. They did not want to talk about what they saw. Skeptics call it an exaggeration, but some things on the ranch defy simple classification. If aliens exist, they can travel here not in ships. Perhaps they are already here. Between measurements, peek through the cracks in our reality. Used to be maybe one of those crackheads. On a silent August night 1979, Deputy Sheriff Marshal Val Johnson patrolled rural roads in Minnesota. Then, from where not come, he saw a bright white light soaring above the road. A few seconds later, this something rushed towards him. Windshield exploded with light, and then everything went dark. When Johnson woke up, it's been 39 minutes. His car was in a ditch. The windshield was broken. The hood is dented, and the antenna is on the roof. Was bent back at a 90-degree angle. Clock on the dashboard, and his wristwatch stopped. Just at that moment, when he passed out, around his eyes he had burns. He went through numerous medical and psychological examinations confirmed that he was sane and hurt by something real. When investigators inspected the patrol car, they found damage, which was not to explain. No trace of paint damage. No impact marks from another vehicle. The glass didn't break to smithereens, as in collision. He seemed to be hit by an invisible force. Case made headlines and was investigated by authorities. The explanation never showed up. Johnson never tried to monetize this incident. He just wanted to know what happened to him. This remains one of the most law enforcement meetings with UFO complete with physical evidence. confirmed injuries, and officer veteran, who never changed his version. Long before the advent of satellites and smartphones, before the advent of telescopes and telescopic ancient lenses, civilizations have already carved strange figures in the temples of Palenga in Mexico and Abydos in Egypt. This carving caused endless controversy and debate. Were they religious symbols, artistic expression, or something much more difficult to explain? Palenque, on the famous lid of the sarcophagus of King Apocalypse, depicted something similar to a person sitting inside a mechanical device. His hands control the levers, feet on pedals. Behind burst out tongues of flame or smoke. Theorists, that looks like a spaceship pilot. However, official archaeologists say that this is a symbolic image of travel, crippling the afterlife. There are also Abydos. In the depths of an Egyptian temple there is carving on which it seems depicted helicopter vehicle, similar to a tank and something resembling futuristically plane. Leading scientists claim, what is this case of optical illusion and when hieroglyphs have changed over the centuries, accidentally creating modern images possible? But the outlines are shockingly accurate. What if ancient people didn't just fantasize? What if they saw something right in the sky, something that shaped their myths, their gods, and their architecture? These drawings are not clear proof, but these are questions carved in stone, questions on which 1,000 years later we're still trying to answer. It was just numbers and letters on the screen, but these numbers and letters shook the scientific world. On a warm night 1977 in a guy, astronomer Jerry Amon scanned the sky with a radio telescope. Bigger when I noticed. Sudden strong signal burst. It lasted exactly 72 seconds and then disappeared. Data stream was labeled as 6 on QUJ5 sequence, representing its intensity. Amon circled it with a red pen and wrote, the only word in the margins is well. The signal came from the constellation Sagittarius. It was narrowband frequency. Exactly what, as scientists believed, will use intelligent civilizations trying to make a connection between the stars. It wasn't natural interference. It wasn't man-made interference. And in the nearly 50 years since, nothing like this was recorded anymore. Theories appeared. Some assumed, what was that reflection from a satellite or even a comet? But none of them fully explained the intensity, clarity, and frequency range. NASA has never confirmed or denied your interest in him, despite repeated attempts. Reproduce the conditions and pinpoint the source. Signal remains a mystery. Was that a radio beacon, broadcast error? Or maybe just someone or something said hello to us just one time. The WOA signal remains the best candidate for main targeted gear, obtained by inhuman means, and it was never decoded. For decades, military pilots whispered about various strange phenomena in the sky. Then these rumors began to write in the newspapers. The Pentagon officially posted 3 Navy videos, which captured unidentified aerial phenomena, recorded by jet fighter cameras. The name of these clips is World Gimbal and Go Fast, have since become a legend. On every video you can hear pilots react in real time. Look at this thing, shouts out to one of them. She spins. It's not just weird lights. These are objects that fall into the radar field, moving against the hurricane wind, instantly gaining speed, without using engine. Video recording was made. Highly qualified pilots, using advanced guidance systems. This is not a prank according to leaked briefings. The military has had hundreds of similar cases. When they got pressed, Pentagon officials did not give clear answers. They just said, unidentified object. If the U.S. Armed Forces, one of the most advanced in the world, will not be able to identify these objects, you can then to radars to jet planes. Before the photo existed at Surubune, history goes back to 1803, when Japanese fishermen spotted a strange vessel. He looked like a round dish, metal and covered with glass panels. Inside sat a pale woman with red hair. She didn't speak Japanese. She didn't look like any of the famous cultures. Drawings of that period depict perfectly symmetrical dome. The woman had Stranger Things clothes on. Symbols were found on the inside of the ship, not similar to any known writing system. In the end though, villagers returned the ship and its occupant to the sea, away from sin. What amazing. So this is how much this centuries-old story is like modern UFO reports. Metal ships and known technologies, humanoid creatures. White Surubune reminds us that UFO is possible, much older than we thought. This happened on the quiet shores of Pascagoula, Mississippi State, the 10th of November 1973. Charles Hickson and Kelvin Parker just got done catfishing when a strange blue light suddenly washed the shore. The ship was steaming silently under the water. Anything. What have they ever seen? Oval shape, metal and completely motionless. Both men described 3 creatures sailing out of the ship. How robotic and inhuman. Their skin was gray and wrinkled. Creatures didn't walk. They were sliding. People unable to scream or move. Raised to ship. Inside they were separated. Calvin remembered the device, scanning his body. Like a mechanical eye, soaring above it. Moments later they were on the riverside again. Tori and Truvani, trembling and scared. They went straight to the police station. The officers were skeptical. So they left 2 men alone. In a room with a hidden recorder. What they recorded was not a rehearsed story. That was real panic. On the recording you can hear Hickson and Parker whisper to each other. It wasn't collusion or a prank. Otherwise, how to explain the shaking and mad fear of 2 adequate people? On this, write everything in the comments. Have you ever seen aliens? And thanks for watching.